Right now, we're having an FOMC meeting in about under 3 hours right now, and Bitcoin is gearing up for a very big move. So we need to be covering what exactly is going to be happening next. As you can see by this chart, the past three meetings have been red for Bitcoin. We've been moving towards the downside after the FOMC meeting. So we need to be talking about what's going to be happening next. Are we going to be moving towards the downside again, or is this time going to be any different? You can see I have a lot of charts and I have a lot of data points actually lined up for you guys. And we're also going to be covering Ethereum. We're going to be seeing what is happening in that short, medium, and longer time frame. And we're going to be seeing what's likely to be happening next. We're also going to be covering the news for the week. So we're going to be looking at some interesting data points and what does it mean for the market. So let's not waste any more time. With that being said, let's get straight away into this banger. Bow. So like you can see, the last three meetings have been red for Bitcoin. We've been moving towards the downside, and we need to talk about if this is going to be a red period for Bitcoin. Are we going to move in towards this FOMC meeting after the decision and then move towards the downside again? We need to be talking about that exactly. So you can see the previous two times on this chart over here, after we got a rate cut, we actually moved towards the downside. And if we look at the probabilities right now, there's an 89% chance that we're going to be getting a federal funds rate cut, and in Polymarket we have a 97% chance for a 25 basis point decrease as well. So of course it's looking very likely that we are going to be getting this rate cut, but the key question is this time different? Are we going to be moving towards the upside, or are we going to be moving towards the downside again? So if we look at the technicals first, you can see that we're in this symmetrical triangle, and of course if we start to see Bitcoin actually break out of this downsloping trend line, then of course it's likely we're going to be seeing a broader bounce. But if we actually start to move towards the downside, especially during the press conference, since I do think that the rate cut decision is already priced in, we're already moving towards the upside just like the two previous times. So I do think it is priced in. So if we start to break below this downsloping trend line, I do think we're going to be grabbing the lows again, and we're going to be moving towards the downside, and potentially we can be creating a double bottom before we actually reverse towards the upside again. But of course right now it is possible that history can repeat and we can move towards the downside again. So that's one thing we need to be watching out for. And on top of that, we do have a bear flag formation actually forming right now, just like the previous two times, and we actually moved towards the downside every time we broke down from this bear flag pattern. So of course right now it is looking likely that Bitcoin can actually move towards the downside and actually sweep this low, and then we can have a double bottom and we can move towards the upside. And of course that's actually going to be looking like another retest of this support level. So if I draw a new one, you can see that we have a support level over here. It's going to look like we're going to be moving towards this support level after rejecting the yearly open before potentially moving towards the upside again. So if you look at this chart more closely, you can see that we have the 50-week moving average plotted, and we have some short positions there. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. But of course, if you look at this chart, it explains it in more detail. You can see that every single time in previous cycles that we've lost the 50-week moving average, we actually came back to retest the 50-week moving average. And after retesting the 50-week moving average, that's where we actually topped out for the cycle and we moved in towards a bear market. So I think this time is not going to be any different. I think we're going to be testing this 50-week moving average. We're going to be getting a relief rally, and then this is where we're going to be topping out for the cycle. This is where we're going to be seeing Bitcoin actually start to move towards the downside again, in towards, sub 60k. So we need to be actually waiting for this relief rally. The question just remains, are we going to be seeing a continuation of this pump for the rate cut in towards the 50-week moving average first, or are we going to be grabbing the lows first and then moving towards the upside? I think any scenario is viable. The most likely scenario in my opinion is a breakdown. So this is one thing to be watching, since we have this bear flag actually forming. But of course I do think a relief rally is actually likely to be playing out, and you can see the stochastic RSI on a weekly time frame is actually oversold, and every time we've been oversold on a weekly, you can see that we've actually had a nice bounce in the market. So of course in the medium time frame, it is likely we are going to be seeing this tick up and we're going to be getting a bounce. So the relief rally is going to be more likely in my opinion. We can also see that the Bitfinex whales, so of course whales trade on Bitfinex a lot, and the Bitfinex longs right now have actually been piling towards the upside, just like the previous two times that's actually marked bottoms in the market. So right now it is possible that we're in a bottom territory, whether we grab the lows and then move towards the upside, or if we just move towards the upside now, it is likely we're going to be getting a bounce in the market. So this is one thing to be watching out for in the medium time frame. But in the longer time frame, my stance still actually stays firm. I still think that we're going to be seeing this bounce in towards the mid-range of this parallel channel, because last time we had a double top. As you can see, we actually came to retest the mid-range of this parallel channel, and then that's where we went in towards a bear market. So I think this time we're going to be moving in towards the mid-range, and then we're going to be coming down, and that's actually situated right at the 50-week moving average like I talked about. So in this chart over here, and this is where I'm going to be looking to scale into a short position. And if we come a little bit higher before moving down, I think that this is a key level at 109.200 over there. So I think that's a key level to actually be shorting. So within this box over here, I think it's going to be a great region that we're going to be seeing Bitcoin topping out at once we get the relief rally. But in that longer time frame, we can see in a monthly time frame right now, Bitcoin is breaking down from this rising wedge, and we're also having a MACD flipping bearish for the second month in a row. So you can see the second red histogram has actually printed with the EMAs on the MACD actually angled down, and they've actually crossed. So of course this is a confirmed signal now, and it is possible we can get a relief rally like I've mentioned, but again, the longer time frame suggests that we're going to be going down towards the downside, and the momentum is going to be moving towards the downside most likely. The only way this can potentially tick back up is if we make new all-time highs, and whilst that is a probability, I think it's lower, and I think it's likely we continue this momentum towards the downside and we start to see, you know, more red histograms, and as the months go by, we're going to be moving towards the downside again. So right now we're struggling to actually break above the yearly open. We actually had a pump in towards 94k yesterday. So if I zoom in on the 2-hourly time frame, you can see that we've actually been making higher highs and higher lows, but this looks kind of corrective because we've actually tried to break the yearly open multiple times, but we've not been able to actually break above. So it's possible that we can actually move towards the downside, take this low, and if we actually get a proper trigger and it looks like we're going to be bouncing again for that retest of that 50-week moving average, and we're going to be getting a relief rally, I think it's actually not going to be a bad opportunity, especially if we have some bullish divergence, to be taking a long position. So a long position in this scenario would actually look like this. We can actually zoom out maybe on the 6-hourly time frame to get a better view of the 50-week moving average, and we can actually target the 50-week moving average with our stop loss just below where price action actually tells us, and we can be getting a nice risk reward there. So if you're agreeing with the analysis and you want to be trading for yourself, make sure to click that first link down below for LBank. LBank is offering the community a massive 50% deposit bonus and a generous refund on your first trade of $5,000, and you can also be getting a $100 position voucher immediately once you register, and you could be getting a deposit bonus of up to $2,500 in futures to be trading with once you actually deposit onto the exchange. So that's the first link down below for LBank. You can see you can be getting all of these benefits right now: a 50% deposit bonus, a $100 voucher, and 100% loss protection on your first trade up to $5,000. So looking at Ethereum against Bitcoin, we can see that Ethereum against Bitcoin has actually broken down from this 4-month downtrend, and we've actually been moving towards the upside right now. And you can see that that's been reflected on the price for Ethereum. It's looking a lot stronger than Bitcoin. It's actually moved towards the upside quite nicely after testing this support level. So this is actually looking really good. And we've actually reclaimed the 50-week moving average for Ethereum already. And now we're headed in towards the bull market support band. So if Ethereum can actually continue towards the upside and we get a stronger relief rally, then I do think that this is where Ethereum is going to be topping, and this is where we're going to be moving towards the downside. So of course, this is where I'm going to be looking to actually take a short position for Ethereum around this region here, and I think that this is going to be an excellent opportunity if we get a relief rally. But if the FOMC meeting actually has a sell-off in Bitcoin, I expect Ethereum to actually meet this trend line here and retest this 50-week moving average again, and then of course that's where maybe Ethereum can bottom, since of course Ethereum's actually stronger than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin may actually sweep the lows, but Ethereum may actually just test this trend line instead. And then that's where we're going to be moving towards the bull market support band again. And then this is where I'm expecting Ethereum to actually top out before we move towards the downside again. But in terms of why Ethereum is actually outperforming right now, it may be because Ethereum actually had an upgrade, just like last time in May where Ethereum had a Pectra upgrade. Ethereum actually moved up about 50%, and right now Ethereum had a Fusaka upgrade. So this is why Ethereum's actually outperforming right now, and you can see we potentially can actually move up to about $4,000 where the bull market support band's actually situated, and then potentially that's where we're going to be topping out and moving towards the downside again. So just to summarize, I do think that the rate cut's actually priced in, and I don't think we're going to be moving a lot once we actually get the announcement of a rate cut. But the key thing to actually watch is the federal press conference that Jerome Powell is going to be speaking in. And of course, these are the key points. This nice tweet by Joshua highlights that, of course, we have the rate cuts priced in already. And the key thing to look at is the Fed dot plot as well, to actually indicate if it's a hawkish cut or not. And of course, we need to actually listen for any potential mentions about mortgage-backed securities and the T-bill purchases, indicating potential QE in 2026, where we're going to be having liquidity coming towards the market. That's another key thing to be looking at. And of course, I don't think the Powell's going to be resigning as well so quickly. So I think, of course, this is a longer time thing in terms of QE that we need to be keeping in mind, and that's where things are going to go risk on. So of course, this supports the fact that I think Bitcoin is going to be topping out already, and we're going to be moving towards the downside for the next few months. But of course, in 2026, we may actually find a bottom before we actually resume towards the upside again. Now, of course, if we get unexpected scenarios like no rate cut or a clear hawkish statement, then the market is going to sell off more aggressively. Although this is unlikely, it is possible that Jerome Powell can make some comment that causes Bitcoin to actually move towards the downside more aggressively. So this is something to be watching out for. But again, if we just get a 25 basis point rate cut and he's more dovish, we may see a slight bounce in the market, and we need to be evaluating whether we're going to be seeing Bitcoin see that relief rally, or we're slowly going to be selling off again, just as like previous 2 times, sweeping the lows and then having a relief rally after. So that'll be it for me. Make sure to be following me on X to be staying up to date with all my updates, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a blessed rest of your day. Peace, guys. See ya. Bye bye.